Revenge films.
Following my husband's belief that the more money, the merrier, we both had a full-time job. Although we both worked full-time, my husband never did any housework, so I had to wake up early to prepare breakfast and make our lunch boxes. I would wash the dishes, do the laundry, go to work, and after I came home, I would have to clean and cook dinner. I take the laundry inside, fold them, and clean up, so I had no time to relax until late in the night. My husband did nothing to help me, and at home he would surf the net, play games, and do whatever he wants. One day I couldn't stop throwing up during lunch break at work. I locked myself in the bathroom and threw up endlessly. I was in a very bad condition, so when I texted my husband telling him to buy dinner tonight because I was too sick to cook for him, he instantly replied saying he can't because he has to work until late. He told me that I didn't have to cook, but I had to buy him dinner. I texted him that I was too nauseous to go shopping, but he never replied no matter how long I waited. At the end, I threw up as much as I could until my stomach was empty and left work early, holding my nausea in. After I got home, I called the packed meal shop nearby, and when I was ordering a serving of a packaged lunch, I started feeling nauseous again, so after I drank some water, I threw up into the toilet again. No matter how much I threw up, I wasn't feeling better. So I was going back and forth from the toilet to the living room, and I spent about 3 hours in the bathroom. I lost consciousness for a while in the bathroom, and by the time I woke up, it was already 7:30, and I was more than an hour late for my packed meal order. I wore 2 face masks, and with a sick bag, I headed to the packed meal shop that was usually a 5-minute walk from my house, but it took me 20 minutes to get there because of my slow movement. On my way home, I met my husband, who was going home with his colleague living at the employee dorm. His colleague said,
"Huh? You're eating packed meals tonight?"
but I thought I might throw up if I opened my mouth to speak, so I had no other choice but to stay silent. Then he said,
"So cold."
Then he said goodbye to my husband and headed home, my husband said, looking frustrated.
"Can't you at least greet him, you lazy woman? Is that my dinner?"
He then snatched the packed meal from my hand and headed home without waiting for me. I wondered why he never asked me if I was okay and acted very rudely towards me instead, which made me feel horrible and wanted to cry. After that, when I arrived home, I couldn't hold it in any longer, and I rushed to the toilet from the door and locked myself inside. I was feeling horrible, and I cried as I threw up. Outside the door, my husband was eating his packed meal, mumbling some complaints. After a while, I could hear him laughing as he watched TV. All this time, I was feeling awful, and I couldn't even stand up inside the bathroom. There was nothing else in my stomach to throw up, but I was still feeling nauseous, and that made me feel even more horrible. When I realized, it looked like I had passed out in the bathroom and woke up after I heard someone banging on the door in a woman's voice. When I opened the door, I found my husband and my mother-in-law standing there. My husband said as he saw me,
"Here she is. She's just sulking like a little kiddo because I complained about a small thing."
He spat at me, but my mother-in-law went pale as she saw me and shouted, "Hurry and call the ambulance!" She left my confused husband with question marks above his head and called the ambulance for me. I was on the verge of losing consciousness while I waited for the ambulance lying down.
Wasn't she just taking a nap in the bathroom because she was sulking and locked herself in there?
How could someone be so pale?
It's normal.
You stupid son! I heard the conversation between my husband and my mother-in-law. I heard about this later, but when I was taken to the hospital with an ambulance, my face was worse than pale. I was deathly pale. The cause was overwork and acute gastroenteritis, but because it was summertime, I was about to die from dehydration. I later realized that I hadn't drunk any water because I was too busy throwing up. And the doctor told us that I might have been dead in the bathroom if my mother-in-law wasn't there with me, so I felt really scared. The reason why she was visiting us was because my husband asked for her help after failing to have me unlock the bathroom door. And the reason was not because he was worried about me, but rather,
"She's sulking and not coming out of the bathroom after I made a small complaint. I can't use the bathroom. Can you do something about her?"
She's not coming out even when you call her? Your wife? Is she dead inside? That's what she thought and hurried to our house. After I got an IV drip and a checkup, the doctor found a problem in my organs and I had to be hospitalized for 2 months. 2 months later, my health still wasn't recovering, so I moved to another hospital and got hospitalized for another 2 months. When I went home temporarily, I could smell the drains from the sink. Little flies were everywhere and the trash was full. Once I saw that, I lost all my motivation and I went back to the hospital after getting my things. But a few days later, my husband told me,
Why didn't you clean the house when you went home the other day? The trash is full.
He was mad at me and brought me divorce papers. Does this guy expect me to clean the house while I'm being hospitalized in the long term? Although I never spend my time at home now, I was getting furious. And as my husband waved the divorce papers in front of me, he said with an evil grin,
You don't make any money, so I let you look after me. But are you sure you want a divorce?
He left the divorce papers in the room and left as he said,
You better think about it and reflect on your actions.
I had my insurance and there would be no negative effects on me from getting a divorce, so I quickly signed the divorce papers and waited for him to come collect it. Then my mother-in-law visited with my husband with a stack of money. When I was wondering what was going on, she snatched the stack of money from my husband, who was struggling with it, and said to me, Please accept this. I'm sorry to cause you trouble until now. She started to apologize with tears in her eyes. According to what she said, my stupid husband complained to her that I didn't clean up the house enough, although I came home temporarily. After hearing him complain, she got furious that my husband was trying to make his hospitalized wife do housework during her temporary visit. When she decided to visit our house, she got even more furious seeing the absolutely horrendous room. And the last straw was when my stupid husband told her that he brought me the divorce papers saying he didn't want a wife like me. My mother-in-law's anger burst, and here we are now. I had nothing against my mother-in-law, but I thought it was impossible for me to live with my husband as a married couple any longer. So I gave him the divorce papers, which I quickly signed the other day. Here, there you go. It looks like my husband never thought I would sign it, so he opened his eyes wide and said something stupid.
Huh? Why did you sign it?
So my mother-in-law scolded him. It's because you brought her the papers. You deserve it. I bet she already knew that I had given up on my husband as soon as she entered this room. I think she still chose to apologize despite that. My husband was the only one who had no idea. I guess he thought that if he threatened me with the divorce papers, I would panic and apologize to him, never daring to go against him and would obey him like a puppet. Of course not. As soon as my husband found out that I was serious, he said, Can you think it over? So my mother-in-law slapped both of his cheeks. And as she punched him, he also signed the papers right there. My mother-in-law responsibly turned the papers in for us the next day. She would apologize to me until the last moment. She was my only regret because she was a really nice person. Like this, I successfully got a divorce while I was hospitalized, but my husband would still text me whenever his mother wasn't looking, so I still felt horrible for a while. I had no idea what's going on in his mind. I was crazy back then because I felt lonely without you. Let's take our time and grow our love again. He would text me like that, so I blocked his contacts. Shortly after that, my mother-in-law sent my things back to my parents' house, but according to what I heard, my husband got kicked out from our mansion. The reason was that our room was in a horrible state, and because he never cleaned the house, the neighbors complained about the strong smell and that there were bugs everywhere, so the manager had no choice but to go check. Then, as soon as he saw the room, he was instantly kicked out and was demanded to pay a great amount for the cleaning and disinfecting process of the room. Moreover, the rumor of what he did to me somehow spread to his office, and now he is isolated at his workplace. He deserves it. I live with my husband, and we lived very close by with my mother-in-law, but she has repeatedly been asking us to move in with her, so I was getting really stressed out. The reason why she wants to live with us is probably because of financial problems, although she never made it clear. We didn't have children, so we were financially stable. But I never wanted to live with my mother-in-law who complained to me all the time, so I always ignored her requests. One day in an afternoon, my mother-in-law called me again. I knew what she was going to say, and she also told me to bring my husband with me. So it was clear that she wanted to talk about us moving in with her by having my husband, who was very accepting of her, by her side. So I accepted all that and decided to go visit her house. As soon as we got inside, she was already in a mood to scold us.
"Sit down right here. I'll have you give me an answer today."
That's what she said. First of all, I've already told her no so many times in the past. As always, she started to give a speech about how a wife should behave and what marriage was.
"Tell me why you don't want to live with us."
She asked me the reason, so I replied. Then, can you tell me the reason why you hate me so much first? I asked her a question too.
"Oh, I never disliked you."
Huh? But you keep on complaining to me. You complain about the way I do laundry, the way I cook, the way I behave?
"It was Miss Tanaka, our neighbor, who complained about the laundry. It's usually the others who comment about your behaviors too."
Then I'll go tell Miss Tanaka not to spy on us and our laundry whenever they have the chance to.
"Hey, you'll cause problems if you tell her that. That's why people tell you that you're rude."
I think it's more rude to complain about the way another family does their laundry.
You don't want to live with us, you never respect your parents, and even have a rude attitude towards the elders. I've had enough. Everyone tells me that it must be so hard to have a daughter-in-law like you."
Huh? Everyone? Who do you mean by that? Does it include Miss Yamazaki? Mrs. Hamazaki and Mrs. Uchida too? I thought Miss Higuchi and Miss Arioga also didn't live with their parents. Not everyone lives with their parents, right?
"People are people, family is family, and you are you. Why are you saying something that a child would say?"
You don't usually say that, Mother. You usually complain about how they do this and they do that.
You're really rude. You better fix that part of your personality. Oh, you make me so mad.
Oh, so you do hate me.
No. Miss Hamazaki sarcastically told me that you were quite a talker. I thought my face would be on fire.
And it was time for her to go crazy. When she calmed down a bit after spitting out everything she wanted to say to me, she asked again.
"How about you? How about we tell each other everything we want to say and feel refreshed?"
That was her idea. Yes, I've been waiting for this moment for 2 years. First of all, I dislike how you think you're allowed to do anything to me. No normal person would cut off the flower that someone's taking care of without asking and bring it home. And I dislike how shameless you are. You're so annoying, nagging me to buy you everything, from accessories, dehumidifiers to makeup. Can't you buy them on your own? Please, just return it to me. I dislike how you don't value our privacy, too. It's not right to visit someone's house and open their shelves without their permission. I want you to understand that your son is part of a different household. And I dislike how you tell me that I'm being lazy while my husband is working hard. Although I only work part-time, I have a job too. And I think you usually spend your time taking a nap. You also tell us that it's the responsibility of the first son to live with you, but you never lived with your mother-in-law. If I remember correctly, your husband is their first son. Also, I dislike how you pretend like others told you so when it's actually what you thought, what you're mad about, and what you want to be sarcastic about. You could just tell them to me as your opinion, but you don't. So it makes me irritated to listen to you. I just can't take it. They didn't expect me to have it prepared so well, and they definitely didn't think I would be so direct. So they all went silent.
Hey, you're going overboard.
That's what my husband told me, but I replied, "It's because you don't do anything, no matter what I tell you. Then the only thing I can do is be direct myself. I thought she was your real mother. If my parents did something like this to you, I would never forgive them. And I would fight back for you, but you never did that for me. Am I that unimportant to you?" My husband looked downhearted.
Sorry,
he said. My mother-in-law was bright red and trembling. "So I'd like to reject your request for moving in with us." I stood up, bowed, and went home. A few days later, my father-in-law visited to apologize. He said he didn't know all the annoying things his wife has been doing to me. She just told him that they would be able to move in with his son and his wife very soon. After I went home that day, my father-in-law asked his wife if everything I said was true. And at first, she was silent, but when he said,
can you be clear?
She told him the truth. When he asked her to get everything that was gifted from me, she got a whole bunch of stuff. And he said he was surprised with the amount. And
What you're doing is basically the same as a robber. As Misha said, you're always being lazy at home. Who would want to live with a person like you who even steals from her?
she was scolded by him for a good amount of time. My father-in-law, who visited our house, brought me everything that his wife took away from me in a big bag.
I'm very sorry. I'll make sure I'll never make my wife go near you or to pressure you about moving in together.
He apologized sincerely, so I decided to forgive her for his sake. My mother-in-law was a housewife, but because she might come to bully me again if she stayed at home all the time, he forcefully made her start a part-time job at a convenience store managed by one of his friends. She refused, but my father-in-law threatened that they would get a divorce if she refused to work. So it looks like she had no other choice but to do so. In my husband's case, when I clearly told him that my love for him was disappearing after he chose to be on his mother's side, not my side, although I was his wife, he went pale.
I'm so sorry, I'll never pretend like I had no idea again.
That's what he told me, but in the end, it was my father-in-law, not him, who made things better. So I left our house and went back to my parents, saying that I needed some time to think about our future. My husband looked like he really regretted it and had his head in his arms. But that's the undeniable truth, that I was having a hard time. So I want him to learn from his mistakes. Of course, I'm going to have him do the housework, cook for him, and look after himself. I used to do all the housework when I almost had a full-time job, so I'll have him understand how hard it is to do everything on his own. While he does that, I'll spend a relaxed time at my parents' house after a long time. Shortly after that, I heard from my friends about how my mother-in-law was doing. But because she hadn't had a job for a long time, she's bad at memorizing and makes a lot of mistakes. So it seems like she was being scolded every single day. Employees that were 20 years younger than her would question her why she couldn't do what they taught, and they would point out not to make the same mistake over and over again. So she's been begging her husband that she wanted to quit the job, but his husband would reply that this would have never happened if she didn't bully her daughter-in-law. You think about unnecessary things because you have too much time, and he would not allow her to quit her job. And she'll have to face a divorce if she ever does quit her job, so it's basically hell in whichever case. She needs to work to survive, but if she goes to work, she'll be scolded by the other employees. So she's struggling mentally, and they say her expression is lifeless. My friend also works at a convenience store, but she told me that being an employee there was a lot of work, and that there were so many things to memorize. So when I told her about my mother-in-law, she sarcastically said she was sorry for her. I plan to trust my father-in-law for looking after his wife, and I'll also have my husband learn from his actions too. For a while, I'll take a long, relaxed break after going through so much by myself. This happened when I was pregnant. I regularly visited the gynecology department. It was pretty inconvenient because I had to take the bus or car, but many pregnant women visited for their regular checkup even on the weekdays, so I had to wait some time whenever I visited. But because it was located in the outskirts, many of them would have their husband or mother drive them there, and I always asked my husband to go there with me and drive me there. My husband was always excited to see the echograms that the doctor showed him at every checkup. His job didn't offer fixed days off, but coincidentally, that day was Saturday, and when we visited the hospital, the waiting room was very crowded with the seats almost full, probably because it was a weekend. Some of the couples were standing while they waited. My husband said,
There's a lot of people today. Should we come back again on a weekday?
But I replied, we're already here. Let's just wait. My husband continued,
But judging from the situation, we'll probably have to wait for about 2 hours. We might have to stand while we wait. Wouldn't that be too exhausting for you?
He seemed worried about me, but there was something I wanted to ask the doctor, so I told him that I wanted to wait for my turn.
Okay then, let's wait together.
So we ended up waiting while both of us stood until it was our turn. My husband and I were standing near the corner of the waiting room. I was 6 months pregnant, and although my belly was getting bigger, I was in my stable period, so standing wasn't a big deal for me. But I was leaning on the wall to make myself as comfortable as I can. My husband was looking around to find a seat that might open. I had given up about sitting for a while now, so I just zoned out and thought, oh, She must be giving birth very soon. Her maternity outfit looks cute. When I was observing the others pondering about random things, I realized something. Half of the people sitting on the chairs were not pregnant women, but actually their husbands or people who accompanied them, probably their mother or mother-in-law. There were many pregnant women, including me, standing. So I thought many people were more selfish than I thought. Whenever my husband found me a seat while we waited for our turn, he would go back out to our car to wait until I called him that it was our turn. We try our best to be considerate of the other pregnant women. Once there was a time when the waiting room was relatively vacant, so I said, "Many seats are open, how about you sit down?" Then my husband replied,
Let's say that more people came here and I give my seat to another pregnant woman. She would feel apologetic to have me give her the seat. If I don't sit down in the first place, she won't have to feel any of that. But if I stand next to you, the people around us would feel uncomfortable. So after I make sure that you got a seat, I'll wait in the car.
I got surprised that my husband unexpectedly had common sense.
Call me when you get your turn. I want to see the echogram.
He emphasized that. Like that, we had already waited for 10 minutes, but the seats didn't seem to open at all, and no one looked willing to give up their seat. My husband was starting to lose his patience. Then my husband pointed to a man who was reading a book sitting down and said,
Should we ask that man to give you his seat? I bet he's just waiting for his wife.
He started walking in that direction, so I stopped him, saying, "No, let's not do that." And the incident happened. A pregnant woman came out of the examination room while she rubbed her belly smiling. But as soon as she looked in our direction, her expression changed and stomped towards the man my husband pointed at. She glanced in our direction, so I thought the couple might say something mean about me. But I figured out that it was the exact opposite at the next moment.
Hey, what are you thinking?
Huh? I'm just sitting down.
When her husband answered as if it was nothing, her face turned furious and she continued,
Can't you see the pregnant woman standing over there? Why don't you think about what you should do? Stand up and offer your seat to her.
After she told him that, he quickly glanced at me and said,
There you go.
And offered me his seat. I wondered if it was right for me to sit there, but I was thankful of his offer, so I decided to sit down. "Thank you, ma'am," when I thanked the woman.
I'm sorry on his behalf. He wasn't being considerate at all,
she said as she bowed to me to apologize. It seemed like she tried to scold him in a quiet voice because she was at the hospital, but her yell was pretty loud and echoed through the waiting room. At that moment, the other husbands and people were accompanying the pregnant women also got up and left the waiting room. Some of them even approached the pregnant women standing in the back and said,
I'm sorry, I didn't realize. Please take a seat.
They kindly offered them their seat. When I glanced at the reception, the nurses were clapping quietly at the pregnant woman who told off her husband. I honestly thought it was their job to tell them off. But what happened just now definitely deserved an applause. And all the pregnant women who were standing while they waited for their turn were able to get a seat. At first, the pregnant woman who scolded her husband stood up to pay her bills at the reception, but many pregnant women approached her and told her, Thank you very much. Thanks to you, I got to sit down." Many went to thank her directly. She answered, and while she blushed,
It's nothing. I just did what I should do.
And she left the hospital looking embarrassed. Shortly after that, my husband headed to the parking lot saying,
Then I'll be waiting in the car.
What happened was really astonishing. I realized that more people lacked consideration than I thought. I thought it might be hard for the men to understand how a woman might feel when pregnant. But more than that, I was surprised with the other women, like their mothers who had also gone through pregnancy, being too overjoyed about their daughter's pregnancy that they weren't aware of their surroundings and didn't offer their seat to the other pregnant women. Of course, there were people who waited in the car or spent their time in other places and came to pick up their wives after the checkup. Some of the mothers also waited in the back after making their daughters sit down. But after this incident, I guess the hospital also thought they had to do something. They put up posters about having a warm feeling after offering their seat to other pregnant women. I think the poster was something like that. By the way, I went to visit the hospital for my regular checkups a few more times after that. But I often met the same pregnant woman there, and we would have some small talk. Because of that incident, her husband looked apologetic. But he started to have conversations with my husband as well, and by the time we got to know the baby gender, they asked each other about their child. We hoped we'd have a girl, and she hoped to have a boy. And because it turned out as we both hoped, we got even more excited when having a conversation. And we also found out that we lived in the same area, so we guessed that the next time we'll be seeing each other again would be at a kindergarten. A few years later, I got pregnant with my second baby, and I started visiting the same hospital again. But maybe because of what happened a few years ago, there was a new waiting room beside the main one dedicated for husbands who were waiting for their wives. There was a vending machine and some bookshelves, and there were many seats so that they can sit and relax. I was having a conversation with a pregnant woman who was also waiting for her turn, asking her how many months pregnant she was, and then she told me, "Actually, there's a legend at this hospital. A few years ago, there was a mother who scolded her husband who was being inconsiderate of the pregnant woman standing in the back. Until then, many of them weren't able to sit down while they waited for their turn. But everyone started to think differently, and all of them are now able to sit down. The hospital even made a waiting room for men, and things changed dramatically." She told me the story happily. I almost told her that we contributed to the change, but I decided to keep it a secret. But knowing that her courageous actions still affected and helped the pregnant women now made me feel happy.
My name is Satoshi. I started dating my fiancée Kyoko about a year ago, and today was finally the day that we were going to get married. Whenever we went on dates, it was always in the neighborhood, so of course I assumed that we would be having our wedding right in this hometown of ours. But then... What? Do you want to have the wedding reception somewhere that far away? And plus, that venue looks like it's going to be really expensive. After we had dinner at a restaurant, my fiancée showed me a hotel on her cell phone that was pretty far away from our hometown.
What's the matter? Are you dissatisfied with a hotel that's this fancy and beautiful?
Nope, it's not like I'm dissatisfied with the hotel itself. It's just that...
But look at it! This place is so fancy and pretty. I've always thought that if I'm going to have a wedding ceremony, that I want to have it here. It's always been my dream.
If my fiancé was going to say that much, then I felt like I had no choice. This was our once-in-a-lifetime wedding, my very first one, and I wanted to make my fiancé's dreams come true as well.
It's really convenient to have a wedding inside of a hotel, because they're really used to dealing with a large number of guests, so we can invite as many people as we want.
Are you planning on inviting that many people to our wedding, though?
Oh, Satoshi, why are you being so cold? This is our wedding, our once-in-a-lifetime wedding, the day where we are the main characters and our special day. Of course I'm going to invite a lot of people, because I want a lot of people to warmly celebrate us and to see us be happy.
I wanted to listen to my fiancé's requests and make as many of her dreams come true as possible. After we made some adjustments and tried to find a balance, as a result, we ended up with about 100 people that we were going to invite to the wedding. The cost of the entire wedding was going to be about $60,000. The day of the wedding ceremony, because of a last-minute emergency at work, I was running a little bit behind and barely got to the hotel in time for the wedding reception. I arrived at the hotel that we had booked. Of course, even though I say I was running behind, I was much earlier than all of the guests. However, when I arrived at the hotel, I was met with an unimaginable accident. Excuse me? You're saying that there isn't a reservation? There's no way that's possible. I am certain that my fiancé and I made a reservation here together for our wedding reception. When I arrived at the hotel, the staff told me that they didn't have a reservation for our wedding reception, and I panicked. And plus, my wife should already be here at the hotel. What? What do you mean she's not here and you haven't seen her? I couldn't understand what was going on and became more confused. Just the other day, we had turned in our marriage certificates and she had officially become my wife. And when I told her earlier that because of my business trip I was going to be running late, she's the one that messaged me saying she would go ahead to the venue and start getting ready before me. But despite my confusion, one by one the wedding guests started to arrive at the hotel. Of course, my parents arrived there, and our friends and our relatives, as well as people from work like my bosses, all started to crowd the hotel. One by one, as they arrived, I explained the situation to each party face to face. Some people were shocked, and of course, some people were angry. My parents told me that I should discuss it with the hotel again, so I went over to talk to them. The front desk staff went and searched for the person in charge of the events, and they looked into what happened. That was when the event manager told me that my wife had called and canceled the reservation. And not only that, but over a month ago. About 50% of the expected venue cost would have been taken as the cancellation fee, but of course the remaining 50% should have been returned to us. And so, not only did she cancel the reception without telling me, I also didn't know what my wife had done with the $30,000 that should have been returned. I was confused, but of course all of the wedding guests, all 100 of them, were extremely confused, and there was a big commotion in the hotel. I wasn't able to get in contact with my wife, nor could I get a hold of her parents either. While I was trying to do that, there were people that were furious. I arrived on the date, the time, and the place that was written on the wedding invitations, so why hasn't the wedding reception started yet? I desperately tried to apologize, and I was trying to calm everybody down when I heard my phone ring. It was from my wife.
Hey, Satoshi, why are you so late? Why haven't you gotten here yet?
I heard my wife's voice nonchalantly asking me these ridiculous questions. Huh? Where are you right now? Do you have any idea what a disaster it is over here right now? I arrived at what should have been our wedding reception venue, and they told me that our reservation had been canceled over a month ago. You know, all 100 of our guests are also confused, and everything is a mess.
Oh, stop that. Stop yelling so loudly in my ear. Before the wedding reception actually begins, I called you, so you should be thankful.
What do you mean before the wedding reception actually begins? When I looked at the time, I realized that it was 50 minutes before the wedding reception was actually scheduled to begin. Hey, what are you saying?
Well then, hurry up and come over to this venue. Bring everybody with you. My parents are already here. We're all waiting for you. See you soon.
Without even waiting to hear my response, my wife hung up the phone on me. Of course, this was happening in front of everybody, and my parents looked concerned, as did everybody else. I turned around and faced them, and I reluctantly explained the situation to them. I was drenched in nervous sweat. However, contrary to what I expected, I didn't hear anybody start yelling insults towards me.
What kind of a bride is this? Not only did she cancel the wedding reception without even discussing it with you, she didn't even tell her husband about it. Unbelievable.
Truly, how awful, how horrible can she be?
And in this way, all of the insults and anger that were being said were directed towards my wife. My parents and I apologized over and over again, and I informed everybody about the updated venue that my wife had just sent to me. But my wife's friends looked irritated and over it, and little by little they dispersed.
As usual, that idiot Kyoko. She's so selfish and does whatever she wants. Now that she submitted the marriage certificates, little by little, her fake skin is peeling off and her true nature is showing. Honestly, I can't keep pretending to be friends with someone that stupid and careless.
When we got to the updated wedding venue, the empty seats were really obvious because more than half of them were empty. In particular, most of my wife's friends that she thought were her close friends were not there. When Kyoko saw that, apparently it infuriated her, and during the entire wedding reception she was in a bad mood and barely smiled. Despite the circumstances, we somehow managed to get through the wedding reception, but when the guests left, the only thing waiting for me was my furious wife. She was practically hysterical.
This is all your fault. Because you didn't follow up appropriately and handle the situation well, we lost so many of our guests. You destroyed the wedding.
She said that to me, and of course I retaliated. Look who's talking! What on earth were you thinking? Not only did you suddenly cancel the wedding reception venue, but this venue is very clearly so many grades below what we had reserved. What is going on here?
Why does that matter so much? And first of all, the wedding reception was going to be held at a place where I decided. So the only thing that changed was that the venue that I decided is different, but it was still my choice to begin with.
You idiot! The biggest problem here is that not only did you not discuss this with me, you didn't tell me about it, and you moved forward with all of the arrangements without telling me.
I just totally forgot, that's all. And plus, the fact that we had less guests at this new reception venue was the guests and their own choice. So that has nothing to do with me. None of this is my fault.
This has everything to do with you and is very much your fault. Plus, what did you do with the $30,000 remaining from the cancellation fee? This venue was pretty pathetic in comparison, and it's not like you could have possibly used that entire amount on this new venue, so where did it go?
Well, that's... Before the wedding, I ended up using it on all kinds of things to prepare for the wedding.
I knew Kyoko, and knowing her, those words did not come smoothly out of her mouth. I knew that she was hiding something, and so I decided to go to a detective agency to launch an investigation. That was when an unexpected truth surfaced. As it turns out, to my disbelief, there was another guy that my wife had been dating before we got married, and that she was continuing to date after we got married. And my wife had used up most of what was remaining from the cancellation fee to mess around with that boyfriend of hers. Now that I had evidence of her affair, I called out my wife and her parents for a discussion. It wasn't just my wife, but my in-laws as well had become suspicious ever since the wedding day. And of course, because it was their daughter, my in-laws were trying to cover for their daughter. And this time, Kyoko's parents, of course, tried to cover for her once again, but I had such solid evidence of her affair that there was nothing they could say. When I showed them the photo evidence, as well as the way that she had used up most of that cancellation fee, all they could do is apologize to me.
Sorry, Satoshi. I cannot believe the trouble that our daughter has caused you.
We are truly so sorry. I can't believe our daughter would actually do something like this.
Even though both of her parents were on their knees apologizing to me, my wife didn't change her stance.
Whatever, I don't care anyway. I am going to have a truly wonderful wedding reception with the man that I truly love anyway.
As it turns out, to my wife, that wedding that was a big failure was apparently not real. So what you're trying to say is that we're getting a divorce, is that right?
Yeah, sure, let's do that.
And so, Kyoko and I got a divorce. And immediately after, Kyoko got remarried to that boyfriend of hers, and then I hired a lawyer. And through the lawyer, I collected the $30,000 of the avoiding venue cancellation fee, as well as the $15,000 of my money that she had probably spent on that boyfriend of hers. And of course, I collected a $30,000 settlement fee from that boyfriend as well. When they got that notice, Kyoko and her boyfriend came to my place and got down on their knees to apologize.
Please don't collect a settlement fee from us.
That's right, Mr. Ex-Husband. Kyoko and I are in love. This is the money that we finally saved up for our dream wedding. If you take $75,000 from us, we're not going to be able to have a wedding.
All I could do was laugh. Well, first of all, this is your fault to begin with, isn't it? You did it to yourselves, and that $15,000 was originally my money anyway. If you're really struggling for money that much, why don't you rely on your parents or friends?
Stop it! Don't talk about my parents and my friends anymore. Everybody is just blaming me for everything.
Kyoko started yelling. Well, of course they are, because for them, the fact that they're related to you or that they were friends with you at all must be so embarrassing. Well then, good luck to you so that you can have that truly wonderful wedding, as long as you can save up the $75,000 you owe me and the $60,000 for the wedding venue that you dreamed of, Kyoko. You'd be able to do it with $135,000.
What? $135,000?
Kyoko and her boyfriend sounded devastated and cried. According to what I heard through the grapevine, not long after that, Kyoko and her boyfriend didn't have a wedding, and they broke up. So it looks like the day for Kyoko to have that truly wonderful wedding of her dreams isn't going to happen.
My name is Anna. I work at a real estate agency, but I'm planning to quit my job because I'm getting married soon. It was just a week ago when Hyde, my boyfriend, proposed to me. On my birthday, after 2 years of dating, he took me to a fancy restaurant and gave me a bouquet and a ring. He then asked me to marry him, and I was so happy I cried. He hoped that I would be a housewife after marriage, so I decided to quit my job. I was close with the other employees at work, and because I felt so comfortable working there, I thought it was a pity to quit. But he was the type to easily get jealous, and he was worried that I might cheat on him. So he wanted me to quit my job as soon as possible. I loved him a lot too, and it wasn't like I didn't want to be a housewife. So I followed what he said and told my boss about quitting my job. The other employees were all happy about my marriage, and they said they wanted to hold a big farewell party for me. At the same time, my husband also informed his company about his marriage, and he texted me that he'll be participating in a drinking party held to celebrate his marriage. I told him not to drink too much, just in case, and let him go. That night, when I was about to go to bed, he called me on the phone. He sounded very drunk, and he asked if he can come visit me now. I did say yes, but I didn't feel like looking after a drunk person late in the night. When he arrived at my apartment, he looked more drunk than I thought. And then he started giving me a speech about his views on marriage, although I was obviously half asleep. He told me that he wanted me to be a housewife after marriage, but he continued to say,
Being a housewife is so easy. What a great position, huh? You better thank me because I'm gonna pay for the living expenses.
He mouthed something I would never imagine for him to say, considering his usual warm personality. I urged him to go to bed and get some sleep today because he was clearly drunk. But he didn't listen to me, saying that there were more things he wanted to tell me about. While I listened to him, rubbing my sleepy eyes, he said something so unexpected that I couldn't believe my ears.
Don't you dare try to bind me to yourself when you're only a housewife.
When I saw him glare at me while he said that, I couldn't help but feel irritated. Although he might be drunk, there are things he shouldn't say. But because those words were from a drunk person, I thought I shouldn't take it too seriously and held my anger in. Then he continued.
Even if I fell in love with another girl, don't you dare ask for compensation.
That's crazy. We're a married couple, but you expect me to allow you to have an affair? When I talked back, he spat at me in an arrogant attitude. Yeah, that's right. You should shut up and allow me. That really set me off, so I asked him, then what if I cheated on you?
In that case, I'll ask you to pay millions for compensation. But if I fell in love with another girl, I'll have an affair with her. Just agree, I'm paying for your living expenses.
He said that as if it was normal. At that moment, my opinions for him changed dramatically. What I've been seeing up until now was just the surface of his personality which he had created. And I found out that he was actually a person who had misogynistic and selfish ideas. Now that I found out his real personality, I knew I wouldn't be happy even if I married him. So I secretly started to record our conversation on my phone, and I'm having difficulty understanding. Can you explain again from the top? When I said that, he replied,
You're gonna be a housewife, so you better forgive me if I cheated on you. But if you're gonna have me pay for your living expenses, you better not cheat on me.
He explained in detail so that it's easy to understand. I recorded all of that and decided to keep it somewhere safe. The next day, he was back to being his warm personality. When I asked him, "Do you remember what happened yesterday?"
I don't remember anything. I was really drunk.
He said so, but he somehow looked awkward. I guessed that he remembered, but was pretending like he forgot, blaming the alcohol. He was trying to pretend like nothing had happened, but there was no way I will forget what he just said. And I just don't want to marry a person who would expect me to allow him to cheat on me. But we were all set to get married, and we had already informed our parents as well. I thought they would think I was being selfish if I wanted to break off our engagement, no matter the reason, so I decided to take advantage of the recording. A week later, we were having a meal at a restaurant with both of our parents so that they can get to know each other. So the 6 of us, including my parents and his parents, got together. As expected, he always maintained the warm side of him in front of the parents. I wanted to talk about breaking off our marriage before it gets too late, so I went straight to the point, saying, "I have something to tell you," leaving my boyfriend confused. I'll pretend like none of this happened and break up with him. When I said that, both of our parents got mad at me, just like I expected.
What are you saying?
Explain why you want to do that.
There's no one better than him.
They started blaming me, so I played the recording in my phone.
Even if I fell in love with another girl, don't you dare ask for compensation. You're gonna be a housewife, so you better forgive me if I cheated on you. But if you're gonna have me pay for your living expenses, you better not cheat on me.
After they heard what he said, they all went silent out of shock. My dad glared at me and said, "What does that mean?" Then he started panicking and his real personality started showing.
Well, what is this? How come you held a grudge on something I said while I was drunk?
When my mom saw him get mad at me, she told him,
You must be a bad drunk if you say something so mean when you're drunk. I cannot trust my daughter with someone like that.
His parents were panicking and they started protecting their son.
That was an accident, right?
You're not usually like this, right?
I clearly told them I cannot marry someone who tells me that he'll cheat in the future before our marriage. And I returned the ring to him right there. He got even more furious and said,
You think it's a joke? I told you I'll pay for your living expenses, but who do you think you are for breaking off the engagement?
He spat those mean words to me, and he showcased the side of him that was far from his warm personality in front of his parents. Seeing him act like that, I felt relieved that I got to find out about his real personality before we got married. After that, his parents scolded him so much, and he vowed to me to apologize to me and my parents. But of course, my parents wouldn't let him go so easily.
I will never allow my daughter to marry someone so arrogant. We're breaking off their engagement.
My dad pushed him away like that. Before we went home, I told him, "Let's break up, don't contact me again," and left him there. Since then, he would text me every day, apologizing and asking me if we can start over. But when I always refused him, he would often get mad, although he was acting apologetic, so I decided to block his contacts. He once waited for me in front of my mansion, but when I told him that I would call the police, he never dared to show himself ever again. After we broke off our engagement and I went back to working at my company, the other employees all cheered me up. They would say, "You'll meet the one soon enough." And thanks to my colleagues who arranged drinking parties for me, I got a new boyfriend half a year after I broke off my engagement. I was developing trust issues after the incident, but thanks to his support, we were able to trust each other, and we got married after we dated for 2 years. We had 2 children after that, and now we live happily as a family of 4. The reason I'm having a happy life now is because I decided to break up with Hyde and not to get married with him. So I can confidently say that I made the right decision back then. By the way, Hyde, on the other hand, was abandoned by his parents after we broke off our engagement. and I heard he lives a lonely single life now. According to a rumor, he's been telling the people around him that he still hasn't gotten over me. So, although I never plan to get involved with him again, if I have the chance to, I would like to tell him that I'm already married and living a happy life.
I've been living with my husband and his mother ever since we got married. But there's something that's been bothering me for a while now. It's that we don't have any kids together yet. When we first got married, I thought that we were going to be blessed with one eventually, but after 2 years, we still don't have any kids. And my mother-in-law is not happy about it either.
Why the hell don't you guys have any kids yet? Don't you know that you're supposed to have kids once you get married? Everyone else has kids. So why can't you try to be more like them, huh?
She always yells at me and blames me for our lack of children. And because I wanted some kids as well, I asked my husband one day if we could both get tested for infertility. And that's when he said this to me.
Well, I don't have to do any tests. We both know who the problem is here. It's you. And besides, I can't go to the hospital. That's shameful and embarrassing. How dare you ask me to subject myself to something like that?
And so, he refused to get tested for infertility. But my mother-in-law didn't stop bothering me over not having any kids, and it was becoming more and more difficult for me to put up with her. And when I turned 35, her bullying got even worse. I guess it's because 35 is the age where the female body starts to become unfit for pregnancy.
God, I can't believe my son decided to marry someone like you. A woman that can't give birth to a child is no woman at all. You're broken, that's what you are. All of my friends have grandchildren now. But look at you! You outright refusal to give me a grandchild is mind-blowing. I wish my son would just leave you. You don't deserve him.
She said these things to me almost every day, and every time I would go up to my room and cry. I can't do this for much longer. And the worst part is, we still don't know why we can't have any children together. But every single time I get my period, my husband and his mother looks at me disappointedly. But one day, I found out that my husband had been cheating on me. He was having an affair with one of his coworkers, and she was still in her 20s. I was shocked when I found out that he had betrayed me. But what was more shocking to me was the fact that he had made his girlfriend pregnant. And while I was still shell-shocked from finding out about this, my husband said this to me.
You're 35 already and you still haven't given me any kids. You're basically useless at this point. It only took a couple of weeks for my girlfriend to get pregnant, you know. Now we know for sure that you were the problem all along. I don't need you anymore, so I want a divorce.
And my mother-in-law was ecstatic when she found out that her son was going to be a father. She didn't care that he had cheated on his wife. Becoming a grandmother was the only thing that was on her mind. And that's when she pulled out a bunch of divorce documents and demanded me to sign them.
You're the reason my son cheated on you. He did nothing wrong. I bet he would have never had an affair if you had just given him a child. This is all your fault. And that is why he doesn't need to compensate you for this divorce. But anyway, now that we all know how useless you are now, you're not welcome here anymore. You're gonna have to leave.
I knew what my mother-in-law was saying was absolutely crazy, but I didn't have the strength to argue against her. I had just found out that I was infertile, and that truth weighed heavily on me. So, all I could do was just sit there and wait. I kept on telling myself that I was useless and infertile. I couldn't think properly anymore, and so when my mother-in-law shoved the divorce papers in my face, I signed them without putting up a fight. What have I been living for this whole time? I was starting to lose the will to live and didn't know where to go or what to do. But that's when my friend found me and gave me a helping hand. She let me stay over at her place that night and told me that I should consider myself lucky since I was able to free myself from that cheating bastard. She was right, but those words rang hollow for me at the time. And so, I spent the next few days just staring into space, doing nothing. But I couldn't just keep on living in my friend's apartment forever. I was going to have to move on and start a new life eventually. So I decided to find a job. And after a while, I was able to land a job offer. I even moved out of my friend's apartment and got my own place. But that's when my friend told me that there was someone she wanted to introduce me to. Apparently, he's her brother's best friend and is a really nice person. She was sure that I was going to get along with him. But to be honest with you, I wasn't really on board at first. I was tired of men at that time, but my friend was really adamant about it. So I told myself, what's the worst that could happen? And decided to meet the guy. And on our first date, he told me that he was already in love with me and asked me to be his girlfriend. I was happy when he confessed his feelings to me, but I still knew that I was a broken good that couldn't have kids. I didn't have to worry about anything though, because when I told him about my infertility, he said that we could spend the rest of our lives just by ourselves. That's when I knew that he was the one for me. And we got married a couple of months later. And a few years later, when I was out taking a walk in the park, I ran into my ex-husband. I was going to pretend like I didn't see him at first, but that's when he recognized me, saw that I had a ring on my finger, and approached me.
You still have our wedding ring on? You're a dumb bitch, aren't you?
What? This isn't our wedding ring. It's a new one that my husband got for me.
What? Your husband?
That's right. I remarried, and I have kids too. That's when my husband returned from the bathroom. He was pushing a stroller that had our baby in it. And when my ex-husband saw our baby, he said this to me.
What the hell? How the hell do you have a kid? You're supposed to be infertile. This is impossible.
And that's what I thought too. I thought I was never going to be able to have any kids. But when my husband and I slept with each other for the first time, I immediately got pregnant. I found out about my pregnancy when my period arrived late. I couldn't believe it at first, so I bought multiple pregnancy tests at the pharmacy. When they all came back positive, I decided to go see a doctor, and that's when I finally became convinced that I was pregnant. I still remember how happy I was that day. I went through a bunch of tests that day, but turns out I was never infertile. I was perfectly healthy, and it was possible for me to have as many children as I wanted to. When I heard the doctor say that, I broke down in tears. It felt like a huge weight had just been lifted from my shoulders. When I was married to my ex-husband, I blamed myself every day for not being able to have kids. I hated myself for not being able to become pregnant and constantly compared myself to others. Even though my mother-in-law was treating me like crap, I genuinely thought I deserved it. And that's why I was so happy and relieved when I learned that I was perfectly healthy. I was never the problem. But my ex-husband couldn't seem to believe what I was telling him. He seemed very confused.
Wait, hold on! I thought you couldn't have children, though!
Well, I don't know. Maybe we just weren't compatible or something. Or there could be something wrong with you. That's definitely a possibility. But if that's the case, then that means the kid you had with your current wife isn't actually yours. Now, isn't that something? My ex-husband's face turned pale as soon as I said that, and he ran out of the park in a hurry. I didn't actually think that my ex-husband was infertile, but it was nice to get revenge on him for putting me through years of emotional abuse. But that's when my husband looked over to me and asked me this.
Are you all right?
I was completely fine. I'm happy now, and to be honest with you, I had forgotten about my ex-husband until I ran into him. Yeah, of course. I'm happily married now, and there's nothing he can say to bother me. Besides, I've got you now. My husband seemed really pleased to hear that. My husband knew what kind of person my ex-husband is, so he was worried that he might end up hurting me again if we ever ran into each other. But a few weeks later, I heard from a mutual friend that the child my ex-husband had with his current wife wasn't actually his. I was shocked when I heard that. Apparently, he decided to do a DNA test on his kid, after I suggested that he was infertile. That's how he found out the truth about the parentage of his wife's child. And now, they're going through an ugly and contentious divorce process. His mother still wasn't convinced that her son was infertile, though, and so he finally decided to get some tests done on him. That's when he found out that he had been infertile his whole life. I bet he's devastated right now. He's been raising a child that isn't even his. How embarrassing is that? Oh, and I wonder how his mother-in-law felt when she found out that she wasn't related to the grandchild that she's always wanted. She must have had such a funny look on her face. And now, he knows that he's been the problem this entire time. I was never the issue. It was always him. But to be honest, I couldn't care less about those people. I have a happy and caring family now, so I don't care what happens to them. I still hope he feels like crap right now, though. He deserves it.
How was today's video? If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, like, and leave a comment. Stay tuned for more.